In 2023, on the grandest stage of NCAA women's basketball, one of the most controversial moments in the sport's history unfolded. What many consider an unprecedented act of disrespect took center stage, igniting heated debates across the basketball world. As a longtime NBA fan who has followed the league's seasons, playoffs, and finals for nearly 2 decades, I can't recall witnessing anything quite like what Angel Reese did to Caitlin Clark on April 2nd, 2023. She relentlessly followed Clark around the court, mimicking John Cena's famous "you can't see me" gesture, implying she was on an entirely different level. Then, to drive the message home, Reese pointed to her ring finger, signaling her impending championship victory, while Clark faced the reality of going home empty-handed. The moment set the sports world on fire, sending media and fans into a frenzy.
My issue with Reese is that she followed Caitlin Clark around the floor. The game was over. Caitlin Clark is walking off, and Reese is trying to catch up to her to wave in her face and point at her finger. And do you feel better about yourself now?
YouTube erupted with reactions. Reddit was flooded with heated debates, and the entire basketball world was buzzing over the moment. Fans and analysts couldn't stop talking about it, with opinions dividing the community. However, when Caitlin Clark was asked about the incident, she remained completely unfazed, even going so far as to defend Angel Reese, showing nothing but poise and sportsmanship.
She should never be criticized for what she did.
It's truly remarkable how Caitlin Clark handled such a blatant taunt with grace and composure, proving the depth of her character. However, as the fierce competitor she is, she didn't get the chance to respond on the court or redeem herself that year. That was the final game of the season. To make matters worse, there were no scheduled regular season matchups between LSU and Iowa in the following season, meaning their only hope for a rematch rested on both teams making deep runs in the 2024 NCAA tournament. Luckily for Clark, the basketball gods had other plans. Exactly 1 year later, on April 1st, 2024, Destiny delivered the highly anticipated round 2 of this heated rivalry. The stage was set in the Elite 8, where the golden girl of women's basketball, Caitlin Clark, once again faced off against her arch-nemesis, Angel Reese, in a showdown that had the entire basketball world on the edge of their seats.
We are so happy to be with you tonight for this epic matchup between LSU and Iowa. You can already feel the energy in this building. These are the 2 most high-scoring offenses in the nation.
With all the drama surrounding the first epic showdown, one key detail often got overlooked. Angel Reese had a powerhouse supporting cast in 2023. LSU's depth was incredible, and in that championship game, they were absolutely on fire. For example, one player dropped 20 points on 9 for 16 shooting, another added 21 points on 8 for 14, and a third was simply unstoppable, hitting 5 of 6 from deep and 7 of 8 overall to finish with 22 points. Meanwhile, although Angel Reese secured a double-double with 15 points and 10 rebounds, her efficiency was far from elite. On the other hand, Caitlin Clark put up 30 points, yet none of her teammates even cracked 15. Given how much LSU's role players dominated that game, Reese's level of disrespect toward Clark was actually quite surprising. By the time round 2 arrived in 2024, however, Reese's loaded supporting cast was gone. While she still had a solid team, it wasn't stacked with multiple WNBA-ready players, making the battlefield far more evenly matched. The entire basketball world couldn't wait for the rematch, and the hype translated into record-breaking numbers. The Elite 8 clash between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese drew a staggering 16 million viewers, surpassing even the 2023 NCAA championship. To put that in perspective, the 2023 WNBA finals, which were celebrated as the most watched in over 2 decades, averaged less than 1 million viewers per game. It was clear this was the matchup everyone wanted to see. Yet just before tip-off, Angel Reese boldly revealed her game plan, stating that the key to stopping Caitlin Clark wasn't necessarily to contain her, but rather to neutralize her teammates.
We're going to have to really worry about those other players. We did a lot of film on those other players, of course, because she wins with 30 and they lose with 30.
That turned out to be a major miscalculation on Angel Reese's part because if there was ever a game where she had to look at Caitlin Clark and say, "Yes, ma'am," this was it. Caitlin was about to show Angel something she had never experienced up close, an opponent dropping 40 points on her. Throughout Angel's entire college career, no player had ever put up that many points against her in a single game. But on April 1st, 2024, in what would be her final college game, she was about to witness it firsthand. This was the moment that truly highlighted the massive gap in popularity between her and Caitlin. And it didn't take long to start. From the very first possession, Clark wasted no time, going straight to work and putting on a performance for the ages.
LSU, an outstanding offensive rebounding team. Clark connects!
Whether it was scoring or playmaking, Caitlin Clark was an unstoppable force, and no matter what Angel Reese tried, she couldn't do a thing to slow her down.
Clark has scored or assisted on 15 of 17 Iowa points.
At that point, LSU's coach had no choice but to call a timeout as Angel Reese was visibly frustrated on the court. A 9-17 deficit was definitely not what LSU had envisioned heading into this matchup. To her credit, however, Reese and LSU didn't back down. They fought back with everything they had, even managing to take the lead at one point, proving they weren't going down without a fight.
Steal! Reese all the way in to give LSU the lead!
At this moment, the crowd erupted, chanting LSU, LSU, LSU in a deafening roar. But as I mentioned earlier, Caitlin Clark was more prepared than ever for Angel Reese this time around. And this was the game where Reese had no choice but to acknowledge it. When the second half began, Reese finally realized the gap between them. This was the moment when Caitlin truly took over, and from the start of the third quarter, she transformed into a Steph Curry-like force, draining unbelievable shots from distances most players wouldn't even dream of attempting. Most players attempting those kinds of shots would either look ridiculous or find themselves immediately benched. But Caitlin Clark was built differently, unlike last year, when Angel Reese had multiple WNBA-bound teammates lighting it up. This time, the weight of the game rested squarely on Reese's shoulders. If LSU was going to survive, she couldn't rely on her teammates to carry the load. It was all on her. Meanwhile, Caitlin kept piling it on. At one point, she drained a three-pointer right in Reese's face, leaving Angel with nothing to do but shrug in disbelief. Moments later, Clark zipped a laser pass right past Reese's face, adding to the frustration. Plays like these left Angel looking helpless, because when you're up against all-time greatness and that player is having an all-time great game, there's really nothing you can do, especially when you realize you have to do it all alone. The fans knew exactly what was happening, and while Caitlin was too classy to mock Reese, the crowd made sure to return the "you can't see me" gesture from 2023 right back at her. Things had come full circle. Not long after, Reese fouled out while desperately trying to force her way to the basket. This year, there was no finger-pointing, no showboating, just quiet frustration from the bench. From the sidelines, Reese could only watch as Caitlin Clark wrapped up her legendary 41-point performance, proving once and for all who was boss. So much for Reese's game plan of stopping Clark's teammates, because Clark didn't need them. And just like that, the only time in Angel Reese's college career that she ever had 40 dropped on her came from the same girl she tried to humiliate a year ago. This moment was a perfect lesson in letting your game do the talking, instead of relying on trash talk.
Caitlin Clark has outscored the Tigers this quarter.
Most players attempting those kinds of shots would either look ridiculous or find themselves immediately benched. But Caitlin Clark was built differently. Unlike last year, when Angel Reese had multiple WNBA-bound teammates lighting it up this time, the weight of the game rested squarely on Reese's shoulders. If LSU was going to survive, she couldn't rely on her teammates to carry the load. It was all on her. Meanwhile, Caitlin kept piling it on. At one point, she drained a three-pointer right in Reese's face, leaving Angel with nothing to do but shrug in disbelief. Moments later, Clark zipped a laser pass right past Reese's face, adding to the frustration. Plays like these left Angel looking helpless because when you're up against all-time greatness and that player is having an all-time great game, there's really nothing you can do, especially when you realize you have to do it all alone. The fans knew exactly what was happening, and while Caitlin was too classy to mock Reese, the crowd made sure to return the "you can't see me" gesture from 2023 right back at her. Things had come full circle. Not long after, Reese fouled out while desperately trying to force her way to the basket. This year there was no finger-pointing, no showboating, just quiet frustration from the bench. From the sidelines, Reese could only watch as Caitlin Clark wrapped up her legendary 41-point performance, proving once and for all who was boss. So much for Reese's game plan of stopping Clark's teammates, because Clark didn't need them. And just like that, the only time in Angel Reese's college career that she ever had 40 dropped on her came from the same girl she tried to humiliate a year ago. This moment was a perfect lesson in letting your game do the talking, instead of relying on trash talk.
This time, it's Iowa. Galactic greatness from Caitlin Clark.
After the game, Caitlin Clark had every opportunity to give Angel Reese a taste of her own medicine, to trash talk just like she had been a year ago. But instead, she chose grace, both in the way she closed out the game and in her post-game interview. But there's one huge point I haven't covered yet, and it's just as important. If this was the night Caitlin Clark showed Angel Reese who was boss, it was also the night she completely exposed Haley Van Lith. Sure, Clark dropped 41 points against Reese and LSU, but nearly 37 of those points came directly at the expense of Haley Van Lith. From the very start, it was clear Haley was guarding Caitlin nearly the entire game. And let me tell you, in my 20-plus years of watching basketball, I've never seen a defender get torched so badly yet still be left out there to suffer over and over again. Time and time again, Caitlin either pulled up and shot over her or blew past her like she was a practice cone. It got to the point where I actually felt bad for Haley, because when a player is getting cooked this badly, you either sub them out or switch defenders. But Kim Mulkey? She let it happen the entire game. One fan put it best. It only took 37 Caitlin Clark points, 10 assists, and 9 threes for Kim to realize maybe she shouldn't put Haley Van Lith on an island. LMAO. Another added, Moy is a dumbass for even trying that out. To which someone else responded, it's not that she tried it, it's that she kept doing it until the 19th straight Caitlin Clark masterclass possession before realizing it was a bad idea. Honestly, this game seriously tanked Haley's WNBA draft stock. According to reports, she had planned to enter the draft this year, but after getting absolutely torched, she's now opting for another year of college to rebuild her stock. Caitlin cooked her so badly she turned her into barbecue chicken on the court. This was even worse than when Jalen Rose got torched by Kobe for 81 points, because at least in that game, everyone took turns guarding Kobe. But in this game, it was almost exclusively Haley. One fan summed it up perfectly. Holy cow, Moy just set her up to die in the Iowa game. Haley Van Lith will likely never forget this game, because it was the night she experienced what LeBron James went through for half a decade against Steph Curry. The truth is, Caitlin Clark is the female version of Steph Curry, and if you want to know exactly why, make sure to check out this video right here, where I break it all down.